Morning. We have been looking, or we started to look at Joseph from back in Genesis. And it's interesting because we only saw a little bit about Joseph, and we've seen a lot about his brothers and his family and what that's like. And so we're going to be turning to Genesis 31. But we know that Joseph, he was hated by his brothers. And they couldn't even speak peacefully. They ended up selling him to the Ishmaelites. Then they made their father believe, or his father said it, and they let him believe that Joseph was eaten by beasts, because they showed him his tunic. And, hey, is this your son's tunic? And so that's the family he's coming from. And this week, we're finally really going to get a glimpse of who Joseph really is and what's going on. Not coming from a great family does not determine the end of our life or what's going to happen in our life, the journey that we're going to be on. It seems to be his brothers, there's 11 of them, and he's the one that's hated. They all seem to agree that he's the one, right? It seems to me that influence could be really bad. And yet, what we're going to see more of Joseph today and see that influence didn't change what he's planning to do or how he's going to act or respond. So we're in Genesis 39, verse 1. And it says, "Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did prosper in his hand." All right, so first of all, it says he was a successful man. He's a slave. He was sold by his brothers and bought by somebody. This concept that the Lord was with them, sometimes it's not so much an outward appearance. He's a slave. He's been bought. But it says his master saw that his Lord was with him. Joseph's Lord was taking care of him. He's successful, which makes me think there must have been some time here. The Bible will jump time pretty quickly because he's had time to notice that things that Joseph's involved with turns out good. So there has to be some time that has gone by. But how does this master know that the Lord is with Joseph? All right. So this concept that I would think that Joseph's actions and his words, that this guy knows. Now remember, Egyptians have many gods, which we'll see that the Lord handles those 400 years from now. But they have many gods. And this guy, this Potiphar who bought him, can see that the Lord is with him. And so I can't help to think that Joseph must be in that realm where he's, hey, we're going to take care of this, whatever it is. And he says, Lord willing, we'll get that done today. Somehow he's communicating that I rely on God and we'll take care of it. He's a slave. It doesn't sound like he's complaining or, all right, I'll get that done. Whatever. He's under obligation to get it done. I don't know if there would be beatings or what would happen if he didn't do it. He's a slave. But Potiphar notices the Lord's with him and everything he does prospers. And so sometimes I think we forget that the Lord is working in our lives. It can prosper for the people around us. I just thought of this morning. I had looked at, I have the ability in our computer world, right? I can see that I work for Home Depot and our region has 117 stores. There's 10 stores in our in the area close by. And my department, not my store, but my department has been number one in the store and within number one to number 5 in the district of 11 stores. And in that 117 stores, we've been in within 20 to 30 of the top of the stores. And then you think, wow, that's because God is taking care of me. But I don't know if that's what he's doing, but I'm willing to give him credit for that. And Joseph is a slave, and whatever he's doing is prospering. And Joseph must be given credit there because Potiphar knows it. All these many gods, he knows that the Lord is with Joseph. Genesis 39, verse 4 says, so Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. And I wonder, he's a slave. He's probably there's consequences of not serving. But I think we have consequences. We have a job, and there's things we need to do, or there's going to be consequences. We might lose that job. But he served him. I like the way that wording is served him. He didn't just show up, I'll get 8 hours in and get my paycheck. He served. And we're called to be servants. But this brings out a point. You remember, if you were here for the first 2 lessons where we spoke mostly about his brothers, but I mentioned there was a part where Joseph brought a bad report to his father. And it's just one line. I'll even read it. It's right here, 37 verse 2. It says, Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. And I kind of provoked the idea that, well, look, he's a tattletale. And some of you probably might have disagreed with it, but you didn't say it. But I provoked that idea because I thought the next week, which we didn't get here, we don't really know Joseph that well. And we were willing to take a one line and say, yep, he's a tattletale. But what we find in verse 37 of chapter 37, 14, it says, his father tells him, please go and see if it is well with your brothers and with the flocks and bring back word. So now there's a little bit more information that maybe that first part when I said, well, he looks like a tattletale, maybe he was just doing what his father had told him. Go check out, bring back word. Whether it's good or not, he's got to bring back the word. But now that we're looking at him as a slave, been sold into slavery, and what we're seeing is he serves, and the Lord is with him, and the Lord is taking care of him. Everything he does is prosper. I think with that little bit more information, maybe he's not a tattletale. Maybe he's just doing what he's asked to do. And first of all, with his father, hey, go check on them, bring back word. When you're working for the Lord, you do what you're asked to do. And sometimes maybe you look like the tattletale. I mentioned this to Josh, and he was saying, and then you step back and look at the perspective. If you're the brothers, he's a tattletale. If you're the father, he's like, he did what I asked. And so there's a contrast between their views and what Joseph did isn't any different. And so sometimes we can get caught up in the perspective we have. And so we want to be careful of that. And I knew, because I've read this story so many times, I knew that was coming, but I thought it would be the next week. And then I'd bring that out. I called him a tattletale, but is he? Can we take one line? And of course, you've heard me say before, I don't like one-liners. If you do that in the scriptures anywhere, you could be in danger of not presenting what's taking place. But there he was. Doing what he's supposed to do, and Potiphar thinks, man, the Lord's with him. Everything he does prospers. And so his brothers couldn't see that. The brothers hated him. I also, let's see, I've just lost place because I talk too much. With more information, we can start to see who Joseph actually is. We're going to start to see how he handles himself no matter what the situation is. We're going to start to see how he treats other people. We're going to start to see that he relies on the Lord, and somehow Potiphar can see it. I don't know if anybody has any comments or questions about that perspective idea, or seeing it differently. if you're over here compared to over here.
Yeah, it kind of made me think that when we're at work, I've been in those situations where people might be taking things here and there. You know, there's people that'll take things, and when you're the workers, they'll just be like, you know, you don't say anything, and you're like, well, I'm not going to take anything, but I don't say anything because, you know, we don't want to tell on somebody, you know, like that's bad to tell on somebody. And so we kind of feel like, oh, that's cool because nobody's going to say anything. But the perspective is, what if I was the store owner? If I was the store owner and somebody was stealing from my store and nobody says anything, now I'm the one being stolen from. Whereas if I had an employee who actually came and told me that, hey, you might keep an eye out on this situation, now that employer is going to say, wow, this employee is looking out for my best interests. You know, so again, it's the perspective. You know, sometimes when we're the worker, we're like, oh, it's a big company, they'll never miss it, they don't pay me enough anyway, I deserve this, and so people will take things. But if you're the owner, you wouldn't appreciate it. You know, we wouldn't appreciate it. So again, as Christians, what is it that we're supposed to look at the other side of it? So
Yeah, the perspective we have for us, we should be thinking, well, what would, we said it years back, it was like, what would Jesus do? That was the popular, you know, what would he do? Well, as Christians, you want to tell the truth wherever you are.
Yeah, it just brought out to me that too, that, you know, as being followers of Christ, you know, sometimes what we do in our actions won't make sense to some people, you know what I mean? They're still caught up in foolish ways, you know, but in our eyes, you know, it's the reality of, you know, that we're always supplied for, and whenever, as long as you're doing right, there's no negativities that are going to come about to the whole situation. So what we might perceive as, you know, being righteous and pure, somebody might think that that's so naive, you know, or foolish, or,
Right.
you know, thinking that it's so, you know, in our selfish ways, some people are still caught up in the selfish ways of, you know, their own interest, and that's what separates, you know.
Right. And in this kind of concept where you're bringing word to the owner of the business or whatever, your management, whatever, you're a snitch. No, I was just doing the right thing. No, you're a snitch. And so again, their way of seeing things isn't the way we see things. And God sees things, and we're just in awe that, wow, you know, when we try to live like the world, we're going to be quiet and not say anything. Especially if we're asked, hey, have you seen anything? Well, no, you need to tell the truth. And so here Joseph was doing what was right under his father. His brothers hated him. They sold him. Think about where their heart is. So it is possible that you could bring out the truth. At Home Depot, they have a thing, see something, say something. And they're talking about theft as well, but they also, with safety. Somebody's not using equipment right. Well, they got the job done. Somebody could have got hurt. You might stop somebody from getting hurt. See something, say something is really common in Home Depot for all things. And so even if they do something great, we have these little things, it's called a Bravo, and you can write it out and post it. Hey, this guy did this job great. He was, you know, fantastic, took care of a customer or something. So see something, say something is really big. But here Joseph was told, hey, go get me a report, and he did it. But we're going to have to get going. Genesis 39, verse 4. So Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put under his authority. So it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know what he had except for the bread that he ate. He's given so much authority and responsibility to Joseph, remember he's a slave, that he doesn't even know what's all in his house or in the field, just what he's eating.